On the news, court remands BRT driver arrested over Bamishe's murder. Fresh crisis looms in APC as INEC rejects NEC meeting notice. And court orders Umahi deputy not to vacate office. We're glad to have you join us in news now. I am Folashade Ogurinde. A magistrate court at the Yaba area of Lagos has ordered the remand of the prime suspect and a bus rapid transit driver, Andrew Nice, over his alleged involvement in the death of his passenger, Oluwabamishi Ayanwala. Magistrate Omobola Salawu ordered the remand for 30 days following an application by the police to enable them complete investigations as well as to await the outcome of the legal advice of the Director of Public Prosecution. Our correspondent, Mary Kanu, has the details in this report.
On February 26, news of the kidnap of a 22-year-old fashion designer who boarded the BRT filtered the air, and 9 days later, the body of Bamishe Ayanwala was found. Bamishe's alleged killer, who is the driver of the BRT she boarded, was caught and remanded in prison by the police. Rising from his remand, the police represented by the officer in charge of legal, Yetunde Kadoso, filed an application to have the suspect remanded in its custody to enable them conclude their investigations. Hearing the application at the magistrate court, Magistrate Omobola Salawu granted the police the order to remand the suspect for 30 days at the Ikoyi Correctional Center. Counsel to the Ayanwala family, speaking with the press, condemned what he described as the refusal of the governor to pay a condolence visit to the grieving family.
The governor of Lagos State, Mr. Babajide Sanwo-Olu, he has refused, neglected to obey his constitutional duty, which he has sworn to by virtue of Chapter 2 of the Constitution of the Republic of Nigeria, to the effect that he will uphold the security and the security and safety of lives and properties. As we speak, our friends of the media, the governor of Lagos State has not paid a condolence visit to the family.
Speaking on possible suspects involved in Bamishe's death, the lawyer called on the Inspector General of Police to enforce some arrests that could help solve the case.
We want to call on the Inspector General of Police to move swiftly and the Commissioner of Police to move swiftly to arrest the Managing Director of Lagos Bus Services Limited within the next 24 hours. And also the top directors of that Lagos Bus Services Limited. Andrew Nice, as very nice as it could be, is now in the custody of the Nigerian police. He has made video evidence, which as lawyers we cannot speak on until the same is tendered in court.
The police has filed a 4-count charge against the suspect, bordering on alleged murder, sexual assault, misconduct and interference with the corpse, and further proceedings in the court have been fixed for April 11, 2022. Mary Kanu, TV360, Nigeria.
There are indications of a fresh crisis in the All Progressives Congress APC as Independent National Electoral Commission INEC rejected the notice for an emergency meeting of the party's National Executive Committee NEC. INEC Secretary Rose Oriron Athoni confirmed the Commission's decision in a letter dated March 9, 2022 and addressed the party's national chairman. INEC said notice for the NEC meeting was not signed by Ebonyi and National Secretary John Apanu Duerdehe. Governor Abubakar Bello of Niger State, who recently took over the leadership of the party, reportedly signed the letter. He had requested the Commission's presence at an emergency meeting of the APC NEC ahead of the party's forthcoming national convention. But INEC, in its response, rejected the invitation, stressing that the National Chairman and Secretary of the APC Caretaker Extraordinary Convention Planning Committee ought to have signed the letter. And still in politics, Governor David Umahi and his deputy Kelechi Igwe have secured an interim order from the Ebonyi State High Court ordering them not to vacate their offices. The court had on February 28, 2022 ruled that Governor Umahi and his deputy did not flout any law by defecting from the People's Democratic Party (PDP) and to the All Progressives Congress (APC). The court, presided by Justice Henry Njoku, had dismissed the matter for lacking in merit and fined the plaintiff, Sonny Oboji, who was the APC candidate and runner-up in the 2019 governorship election, 500,000 naira. Well, to discuss this further, political affairs analyst Nelson Ekujimi joins me now. Let's begin with INEC's refusal to recognize Governor Abubakar Bello's notice of an emergency meeting of the party's National Executive Committee, NEC. What are the consequences of this development?
And recognize that we operate a constitutional democracy in which the democratic process is governed by the Constitution and the Electoral Act. And like INEC rightly stated, they ought to have been given a 21 days notice according to section 82 subsection 1 of the Electoral Act. If APC has done otherwise, then it means the party is not in tune with the 2022 Electoral Act. And this is an opportunity to call on the party as well as other political parties to get themselves acquainted with the provisions of the Electoral Act such that they will be saved this type of embarrassment. Be that as it may, I think INEC has done the rightful thing that the communication channel did not follow the normal procedure as required by law. And the consequence is that the INEC has, refused to recognize the emergency meeting that has been called. And what it means now is for the party to go and do the needful and recognize that a 21 days gap needs to be put in place in notifying INEC of whatever they want to do.
Now, the issue of Governor David Umahi and the PDP, what next now that, especially since two separate courts have given separate judgments on the same court case?
Well, it's very unfortunate that once again we have seen our political gladiators embark on, judicial shopping or window shopping, like we used to call it. A court of competent jurisdiction gave a ruling on a matter in Ebonyi State. And the other party to that matter went before a court of equal jurisdiction in Abuja and got another order contrary to the earlier one from the same high court in Ebonyi State. Only for you to now report today that the high court again in Ebonyi has ordered the governor to remain, in power. So it tells you clearly that there's confusion in our judicial, institution. That the National Judicial Council needs to, wake up from its slumber, because we have seen this repeatedly. And I'm afraid if we are not careful, the judiciary might become the undertaker of our democracy with this type of embarrassing court orders by court of competent jurisdiction. You expect that when a high court in Ebonyi gives a judgment, anybody who is dissatisfied should go to, the higher court, which is the Court of Appeal. But in this case, we have seen people who are dissatisfied just go in the night to secure court orders or judgment of equal court jurisdiction with one that has been given before. And this does not portend good for our democracy. It does not portend good for our judicial system.
Well, Nelson Ekujimi, political affairs analyst, thank you so much for your contribution. Stakeholders in the aviation sector have expressed worry over the safety of airlines in Nigeria, adding that they were disturbed in the face of continuous hikes in the price of aviation fuel. These concerns were discussed during a hearing by the House of Representatives ad hoc committee chaired by the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Hamad Wase, investigating the scarcity of aviation fuel. During the session, the CEO of Air Peace, Alan Oyema, reiterated that airlines are making too much sacrifices to keep the aviation sector alive. On his part, the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives, Idris Wase, charged the relevant government agencies to urgently reduce the price of Jet A1 fuel to enable airline operators to resume fuel operations in the country and beyond.
We didn't ground our operations because we didn't want the political actors to make a capital out of something that actually we should have done. Here in Nigeria, the cost of aviation fuel is about 70% even before this increase. Because in Nigeria, this market forces from his group. It goes in the morning, what you buy is not what you buy at 12 noon. It has been like that over the years. But what happened in the last 2 weeks, unbelievable. From 190 naira to a liter, the thing jumped to 300 and something, from there to 450. And we thought that was, very alarming. Only for us to wake up 2 days ago, it became 599. The following morning, I bought 670. We cannot operate this way.
I don't want to come before this committee explaining why A or B happened. Every day it's going 20 naira, 30 naira. Yesterday it was 635. Today it's 670. And considering the cost of air ticket now, the base of 50 naira, the airline industry cannot survive.
This is an investigative hearing of the parliament, and that's a normal procedure. Don't change your statements on assumption that you have taken your first value of what you said. We have sufficient supply, we have given a certain number of companies, they have, and we have excess. When you say I have supply that can last up to 34 days, it means then you have excess supply, not only of what they are talking about consumption today, but in case of emergency, even if our vessels are stuck somewhere, we have sufficient that can serve the country without going anywhere.
The federal government has evacuated 123 more Nigerians stranded in Ukraine following Russia's invasion of the country. The evacuees returned to the country aboard an Air Peace plane, which arrived at the Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport in Abuja at about 1:20 a.m. on Friday. Following their arrival, the evacuees were subjected to the usual procedures such as documentation and tests for COVID-19. According to the Nigerians in Diaspora Commission NIDCOM, the returnees are also expected to receive $100 each as transport fee from the federal government. So far, 1,199 Nigerians have been evacuated from Ukraine since the efforts to help Nigerians flee the war-torn country started. Ethnic groups residents in Lagos have called on Nigerians to support the national leader of the All Progressives Congress, APC, Bola Tinubu, as he declared his intention to contest the 2023 presidential elections. Speaking at the gathering, the leader Indigbo in Lagos, APC, Joe Igbokwe, reflected on the outstanding leadership qualities of Bola Tinubu. On his part, the State Commissioner for Economic Planning and Budget, Sam Egube, expressed confidence in Tinubu's ability to rule the country come 2023.
We saw what he did from 1999 to 2007. The foundation he laid and the leaders that he handed over to us, Fashola, Ambode, Sonwolu. You can see Lagos today. Lagos is a mini Nigeria. We are rooting for Shiwaju, we are standing for Shiwaju because we felt that Nigeria needs him to do something different at the federal level.
This is a time that Nigeria is at a need of leadership and a sense of direction. And you can see it is not only the Arewa community, you can see the Igbo groups, you can also see the North Central groups, the South groups, all various ethnic nationalities coming together, sharing the same vision, sharing the same belief to endorse Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu.
This man fought in the time when we were fighting for our freedom in Nigeria to liberate us from the military. He has continued to fight for the strengthening of Nigeria as a federation. Right? He fought for APC to come into the center. I think that because we are good people in Lagos, we believe that that thing that we have enjoyed is now time that we release him to Abuja, to Aso Rock.
We'll take a break here, but still to come, federal government raises petroleum products freight rate by 25%. Details of the story and more right after this break.
Opinions are free, facts are sacred, but truth is universal.
How, in practical terms, can we, for instance, de-escalate the tension?
President must see himself as the President of the Federal Republic.
We know where the enemy is. 3 places. The Lake Chad Basin, the border area between Nigeria and Cameroon, and then the Sambisa Forest.
On TV360, we give you a complete dose of everything. Opinion, facts, and undiluted truth.
I hardly believe what politicians say in this part of the world.
A new Nigeria is possible, a future is possible.
We delve into the issues, dissect it so that you can understand it, use it to take action.
I don't think there's any need for any governor to look for grant for ranching.
TV360, dissecting the issues.
Welcome back. Now here is a recap of some of our top stories tonight. A magistrate's court at the Yaba area of Lagos State has ordered the remand of the prime suspect and a bus rapid transit driver, Andrew Nice, over his alleged involvement in the death of his passenger, Oluwabamiche Ayanwala. Magistrate Omobola Salau ordered the remand for 30 days following an application by the police to enable them complete investigations, as well as to await the outcome of the legal advice of the Director of Public Prosecution. We also told you that there are indications of a fresh crisis in the All Progressives Congress, APC, as the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, rejected a notice for an emergency meeting of the party's National Executive Committee, NEC. NEC Secretary Rose Orion Anthony confirmed the Commission's decision in a letter dated March 9, 2022, and addressed to the party's national chairman. But in case you missed any of our news bulletin, for more updates, do log on to our website on www.tv360nigeria.com. You can also follow us on our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and Google Plus at TV360 Nigeria. On Facebook, we are TV360 Online. As Nigeria continues to witness a decline in COVID-19 cases, 33 new infections have been recorded in 4 states and the FCT. In the breakdown by the Nigeria Center for Disease Control NCDC, Lagos, the epicenter, registered 23 cases, followed by Rivers and Imo states with 6 and 2 cases respectively. The Federal Capital Territory and Kaduna followed on the chart with 1 case each. With the new cases and no fatality reported, the total number of infections rose to 254,894, while the fatality toll stands at 3,142. The Africa Center for Disease Control, CDC, has signed a memorandum of understanding with Pfizer to bring supplies of its Paxlovid antiviral COVID-19 pills to the continent. The director of the Africa Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, John Ikengason, said the MOU is with the legal office at the African Union. Ikengason added that African countries should be using a combination of public health measures, vaccines, testing, and other treatments in their efforts to overcome the COVID-19 pandemic. I'll take another breather here and return with more stories and business, international, and sports. To stay with us. Welcome back. Well, let's now join Mary Kanu for the latest in the world of business. Over to you, Mary.
Well, many thanks, Folashade. Welcome to Business News. The lingering crisis between Ukraine and Russia has led to an unprecedented rise in the cost of crude oil. In Nigeria, the cost of diesel has doubled, leading to depleting profit margins for manufacturers. Our correspondent Folashade Ogurinde tells us more.
Just when the long queues were beginning to abate, the price of automotive gas oil, also known as diesel, hit a record high of 625 naira per litre in some filling stations. This is bad news for manufacturers, as the sector depends heavily on diesel to transport goods and run machineries. Inadequate power supplies also worsened the situation, as diesel accounts for as much as 40% of manufacturers' operating expenses.
To put it in context, the diesel is generally used by both corporate and individuals. But for us in the manufacturing sector, the price of diesel becomes, the importance of it becomes more evident when you view the context in which we operate. First, there's inadequacy of electricity supply, and so you will normally require diesel to fire your generators. And the cost structure of power in an average manufacturing company is between 30% to 40%.
There are fears that Nigeria's lingering energy crisis could triple the cost of production, accelerate the inflationary pressure on the economy, and lead to job losses.
The only alternative that will come readily is when there's improvement in the supply of electricity, because it becomes a lesser evil. In the first instance, the tariff on electricity that is supplied from the national grid is skewed against those of us that are maximum demand customers, the manufacturers. So, but if there's adequacy of supply, it is a lesser evil than this bedlam that the escalation in the price of diesel has become.
Experts are also worried about government's reluctance to scrap fuel subsidy regime, which has been linked to the country's inability to improve its revenue base.
The cost of subsidy is going up significantly. As at the last count, we were talking about 3 trillion in subsidy, 3 trillion naira in subsidy budget. Now that oil price has crossed the $120 per barrel mark, we should be talking of a much higher figure, possibly around 4 trillion or even 5 trillion naira in terms of subsidy. How are we going to fund that? Already we have a debt service of almost 4 trillion. You have a recurrent expenditure of almost 7 trillion. Now you are talking about a subsidy, another subsidy of almost 4 or 5 trillion. So there's a whole lot of issues around all of this crisis that we are having with respect to our oil and gas sector, and in particular with respect to the management of our petroleum downstream industry.
With the deregulation of the downstream diesel sector, there is little or nothing the government can do to influence the price, as a rising global cost of crude oil translates to higher cost of petrol import. The high crude oil price has also been described as a double jeopardy for the economy, as Nigeria's complete dependence on imported diesel, as well as huge petrol subsidy payment, erodes any hope of excess foreign reserves. Folashade Ogurinde, TV360 News.
We'll take a break now and return with a review of the stock market. To stay with us. What a way to end the week. Nigeria's equity stock market maintained intraday gains to end the week in the green, up at 0.16%. The exact gains recorded in the previous trading session as investors continue bargain hunting. Now, staying within the same range of the 47,000 basis points, indicators showed strong buying into this session as Niger Insurance and Audi Briscoe stayed top off again is counter with 7 kobo gains. Now, at the close of today's trading, our market summary shows improvements in volume, value, but decline in deals. Now, losing about 46 kobo. The draw of Royal Lex and Ella Lakes led 20 losers to top the losers counter as market breadth closed flat. Now, let's now turn our attention to some selected global stocks, that is the FTSE, the Dow Jones and the Nikkei. Now, in the US and the UK, the market is trading high at 0.91% and 0.41%, while it's quite different in Asia as Japan's Nikkei stock index retreated towards a 16-month low at the close of trading. Now, on the fears of a protracted conflict in Ukraine. Now, that's why we can see that the Nikkei is currently trading down at 2.05%. Well, that's all on Stock Market Review. For Lashade, back to you.
Well, many thanks, Mary, for that update. Now, the foreign Russian President Vladimir Putin on Friday backed plans to allow volunteers to fight in Ukraine, where he sent thousands of Russian troops in what he calls a special military operation. Putin also ordered the defense minister during a televised Security Council meeting to prepare a separate report on strengthening Russia's western borders. The defense minister said more than 10,000 volunteers, mostly from the Middle East, have appealed to join the military action. On the sporting scene, Shooting Stars Sports Club 3SC has sacked 17 players after a review of the team's performances in the ongoing season of the Nigeria Professional Football League. The club announced the mass retrenchment in a statement released by Tosin Omojola, its media officer, on Thursday. Since returning to the NPFL from relegation this season, 3SC's performance has left much to be desired from fans of the 5-time league champions, as the team has failed to win in their last 5 games in the league. And that's the size of our news bulletin. Many thanks for watching. I am Folashade Ogurinde. Bye for now.